Hello, 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 everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the Black Mental Health Matters show, where our mission is to encourage open dialogue around mental health among Black communities globally. I'm your host, Jasmyn Ruja, and today's episode, we will be discussing holistic approaches to managing stress and anxiety. Please stay tuned. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you again for your attendance here with us today at Black Mental Health Matters. Today, we're going to be discussing holistic approaches to managing stress and anxiety, and I will be joined by two lovely ladies who are very passionate about holistic and alternative methods to treating mental health. I'm going to let our lovely guests introduce themselves today, so I'm going to bring them onto the stream. Please welcome Mekaya Williams-Franklin and Sonia Hart. Good morning. Hello.
Good morning. Good morning. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining with us today.
Yes. How are you ladies doing today? Oh, let's see. Oh, Miss Sonia, oh, there we go.
Yes, I'm doing well. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sonia and I'm in Barbados.
Ooh, I wish.
Yes. I wish too.
Come on over.
Yes.
We're
Would you ladies
open.
mind telling us a little bit about your background with just what you do, what you're passionate about, and where you're working from?
Yes, I'll get started. Well, first and foremost, my name is Mekaya. I'm from New Jersey, and I'm currently a student studying broadcast journalism at Bowie State University, and I am a third year student. I am really passionate about mental health because prior to the pandemic, I started my own blog, and from this platform, I do advocate for wellness in the Black community and pretty much everyone around me that shares it and just spreads the message. Really started with my passion, and now doing my work here is just continuing that.
This is beautiful. Thank you, Mekaya. And Miss Sonia?
Thank you.
I am a licensed spiritual practitioner with Centers for Spiritual Living, and the head office is in Colorado. And I'm passionate about well being, not just mental, but spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to say physical because they're all tied in. What I do with my clients is help them to find wholeness, return them to that place of wholeness. And I use spiritual mind treatment, which is a form of affirmative prayer, which is to rework the mind into a positive way of thinking about life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a short explanation as to what affirmative prayer is. It's basically affirming so that you change your thinking about the circumstances that you may find yourself in. And I would like to say you flip the script.
Yes, that is so powerful. Thank you, Miss Sonia. And thank you
You're
too
so
for
welcome.
being here with us today and sharing your energy with us and your time because it is very appreciated. Okay, so
Thank you.
thank you. We do have a list of questions for our guests today, but we will also, at the end, if we have time, be accepting questions from the live viewers who are watching. But let's get right into it, ladies. So, our first question is going to be, what is your definition of holistic mental wellness?
Sonia, I'm just gonna go ahead because I feel like you're
Well,
more
that's
skilled at
fine.
this. Thank you. All right. For me, I guess holistic wellness is in the word. So when it comes to your mental capacity, I feel as though everything, like Sonia did mention before, is connected. So when it's in the beginning of the word, what I mean is whole. When you think of whole, what do you think of? You think of entirety and getting to the root of all issues. And holistic wellness and holistic mental health to me is exactly that, because without starting with your mental wellness, with your mental health and
Okay.
wellness, without starting with your mental health and wellness, then the rest of your body is in detriment to whatever illnesses or trauma that you are suppressing.
Yes. Yes. 100%. Thank you, Mekaya, for that beautiful explanation. And Miss Sonia, did you want to answer as well?
I'm just gonna reaffirm what Micaiah has said because it is mind, body, and soul connection. When you think of holistic mental health, and Micaiah said it beautifully. If you're not well mentally, the body picks it up. So you have that psychosomatic effect.
Yes.
It's very important that the mind is in a joyful and blissful place as much
Yes.
as you can allow it to be, so that every cell in your body responds to that energy. So
Yes.
for me, it's the Trinity, body, mind, and soul, however you put it, the three in
Mhm.
one,
Mhm.
balance. That's what it is.
Yes. And I love how you say it's a 3 in 1 because each piece feeds off of each other.
Oh,
Yes.
yes. Yes.
All right.
If you ill treat the body, then the mind becomes depressed
Yes. And
because it's not functioning
vice
properly.
versa. Right.
When the
Definitely.
mind is not functioning properly, the body picks it up. And the soul also picks it up, and then you see all these other issues
Mhm.
manifesting.
Yes. Into your physical life. I agree. Thank you, ladies. Our next question. What has your experience personally been in working with holistic wellness practices, whether in your personal or your professional life?
For me, a really big impact in my experience and my journey through holistic wellness have really been my mentors. My I actually wrote them down so I could thank them specifically. um, I used to, well, at the beginning of my college career, I had this professor. Her name was Shanae Carpenter, and she was my freshman seminar professor. And in this class, it seemed as though it was a menial class, but she made it about health and wellness and maintaining this with our journals. And that's really where I nipped in the bud the fact that I didn't like keeping all of my emotions inside. And that's where my passion for journalism actually was like born.
Mhm.
Because I knew that if I was feeling these ways, that other people were feeling them as well. And as long as I could share my experiences, then that meant that I would be able to touch at least one person with what I've been through and let them know that they're not the only one that has been through it. Um,
Mhm.
Another couple of my mentors, uh, the staff at Green Acres at the Piscataway location in New Jersey. I worked here last summer, and this is where I really honed in on my herbalism and homeopathic studies. So it was just really cool to actually be hands-on with like the different tinctures and the herbs, and to learn about the body's reaction to stuff like that.
Yes, it's beautiful. And I heard you mention about the herbs and working with herbalism a little bit. I love that. Yes. Miss Sonia?
I don't know where to begin to answer this question because it's a big question, But I'm going to share that for me personally, being a part of a team who you have to check in with, right? I have a prayer partner that I check in with. And that is one of the practices for me as a holistic wellness, is having a prayer partner that I check in with weekly. And that has helped me to identify even my own traumas so that I become a better health practitioner, mental health practitioner, so to speak, spiritual health practitioner. It is to continually empty yourself of your past trauma so that you heal. And a part of what I do in terms of affirmative prayer, when I'm praying for someone, I'm not treating that person only. I'm treating my own consciousness. I'm working on my own consciousness. Every time I speak a prayer for someone, I am in essence working on my faith and deepening that faith in terms of the outcomes that I'm expecting to have. And I shouldn't say outcomes, but knowing the truth for that person of what their reality is. And in the practice also is about journeying with the other person sometimes. It is not always about talking. It's about just being present. And one of the practices for me that is very important is to always go to the experiential side and say, okay, I want you to do this exercise for me. It could be meditation, it could be journaling, it could be starting a gratitude journal, it could be doing a simple thing like Ho'oponopono. But it's always to bring that experiential element in, because I find from experience that helps to rewire the brain faster. Doing something rather than someone just sitting and so tell me how are things going for you today, and talking does not always bring a resolution,
Right.
Yeah.
and I like to say that I think it's with Paul, who said faith without works is dead.
Yes.
And that's why as a healer, I like to always give something to do.
Yes.
Something to do.
And the action items are powerful. Yes.
I feel like I should be sitting here writing notes down.
Right.
Her wisdom.
Yes.
When you go back to the recording, Mekaya, make the notes.
And then so many things that you both said that I agree with Mekaya saying like your experiences may be able to help someone else, and with Sonia saying that the actionable items may be better for someone who might be in a tough place rather than talking it out, right? And these things can even help us in our own practice as spiritual healers and mental health practitioners. Just helping other people through their problems will make us look at our own lives and say, well, maybe I need to put more of that in my own life, right? To help myself out.
Yes, we're not immune to life challenges. Even though we are here to assist others, we still have to do our own personal health care.
Yes.
I believe in health care. Just recently, I said to my mentor, I'm taking a sabbatical, 3 days. A 3-day sabbatical where I'm going off grid. No telephone, no people, no nothing. Just me and my inner self. And of course, my books to journal and the music and the candles and the incense. Build my altar and have my personal spiritual retreat, a sabbatical, because I've been going through some stuff that I need to pull back from all of the stresses of society.
Yes.
And heal.
Mm-hmm.
So as a healer, you need to have self-care.
Yes. And that even goes into your practice. My great grandmother used to always tell me, you cannot pour from an empty cup.
Exactly.
Oh, she must have been from the Caribbean. because
She was
we
a
say the
very,
same
very wise
thing.
woman.
You
You
cannot.
can't.
You have to always let that cup overflow, and let the overflow go to the others. Just keep it flowing
Yes.
in and let it flow out.
Yes. And I know even sometimes I've tried to pour from an empty cup and I was like, I see what she's talking about now.
Exactly. It's so
You
draining.
can't give what you don't have.
Exactly. Exactly.
And in our early conversation, when I said, tithing is very important, but tithing is not always about cash. It's not always money. It
Right.
is the gifts that you have that you can give back to anyone who is in need of that gift in that moment. It is not
Mhm.
about tithing to the organization. It is about humanity. How am I showing up for the people that I can see and touch in a personal way? It's about
Yeah.
giving back.
Especially doing this holistically, because it's all intrinsic,
Mhm.
because it starts with you. Like, you have to be able to put your well-being before anything else, because
Yeah.
even as a practitioner or as a therapist or as a psychologist, anyone on the front lines of public service when it comes to mental health and psychology, I
Mhm.
feel like it's just filled with so many different mind games. A couple of semesters ago, actually, I took a I think it was no, it was a psychoanalytical class. And
Mhm.
with this, we were learning basically behind the minds of different mental disorders and illnesses and such. And it was just really hard for me to not try and go and be like, oh, I see symptoms in you, I see symptoms in me of this illness. And it's just
Right.
like, you can't let stuff like that leave from your office, because then it infringes on your personal well-being and everyone else around you.
Right. Definitely. Especially if it's not dealt with internally. I 100% agree. Okay. Thank you, ladies, for that insight. We're going to move to our next question. Our next question is: in what ways can holistic wellness be beneficial for people experiencing anxiety and stress?
Sonia, you could go ahead and get started. I'm sorry.
Oh, I know that that's a challenging question because it it is very broad in the sense that there are different levels of stress and there are different levels of anxiety.
Right.
And you have to, when a client sits before you, you have to be able to first identify the type of stress that person is going through, the type of anxiety, before you can say, okay, let us do this together, or let me help you with this healing. And I think
Mhm.
it is important that you start to really individualize rather than bring it from a broad perspective. No two persons are alike. I
Mhm.
handle my traumas differently to how a lot of other people handle their traumas. Um, and I'm going to share with you one of my daughters has anxiety and panic attacks if she thinks she's not going to get an A in an exam.
Mhm.
So how do I deal with that? And when I put on my mommy hat, I don't see her as a client. I see her as this child needs to get over that, get a D, get a C, just pass.
Right.
But for her, I don't want to go below my standard of having an A, so she gets a panic attack. She becomes
Mhm.
anxious, and then they have to talk her through this stuff, you know, call the facilitator of the class. Have you done this? Have you done that? What makes you think you're going to fail? And just walk her through it.
Mhm.
But for me to go and say, well, why don't you go in a corner and meditate?
Right.
That's not going to work because in the moment,
Mhm.
she is not hearing anything other than I have failed because I think it's some program they have when you're doing the exam online, something called respondents. It froze.
Mhm.
I didn't have enough time to complete.
Ooh,
So in
okay.
her mind, she's not hearing anything that I'm saying. So I
Mhm.
think that holistic wellness with people experiencing anxiety and stress has to be done based on the situation that presents itself and
Yeah.
not thrown out there as a one size fit all remedy.
Right.
Those stresses are alike, and anxiety comes in different forms. I may become anxious because my purse is empty. That's a different kind of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
It all depends. But these are some of the things you can do for anxiety to reduce anxiety and stress in people overall. And I would strongly recommend meditation,
Mm-hmm.
being mindful, and not when you're in that state of anxiety, because when you're in that state of anxiety, it's very hard to come back. But if you make things like meditating a personal practice daily, when curveballs come at you, you're going to duck, you're going to catch them, and you're going to throw them back, because nothing disturbs your sense of balance very easily. And you would have heard me mention I have prayer partners. Again, have someone that you can communicate with, someone you can trust to communicate how you're feeling when you're in that moment. Someone who's going to help you find your sense of balance. That is important as well. Having that, buddy that you can call up and say, look, something is off today, I'm not feeling well. But it is important to have someone to talk to. Community is very important to every living creature. We may not think so, but community is important.
It is.
Yeah, and all of these things help to reduce anxiety and stress, knowing that you belong, knowing that you're supported. There are lots
Mm-hmm.
of practices like breath work, chanting, you have the mantras. Um, if you live in the Caribbean, dance might be a part of it. You find a soca party and you go and throw your waist and just behave that. Work all night if you have to. And
I
release the
love
stress,
dancing.
release the
Yes.
tension, you know.
And it can be
Art.
such a release.
Yes,
Yeah.
dancing as a way of therapy. Dancing after anything, like you just put on the biggest headphones possible, turn it all the way
Yes.
up, and just dance.
Just
Yeah,
feel
it does. Music is very therapeutic. But
Yes,
yes.
if you're in the Caribbean and
absolutely.
you listen to some of our rhythms, especially our calypso, I'm telling you, you forget about everything. You don't
Mhm.
even care if there's a million people on the dance floor with you. You just do your stuff.
Yes.
And of course, there's the breath work. There is yoga exercises, art, and art has several different forms. Art could be cooking, baking, painting, writing. And art can just be standing still and observing.
Mm-hmm.
So there are lots of different ways of taking care of stress, but you have to identify what is bringing this stress. And if someone comes to me and they're stressed, I'm going to go to the silence first. I'm going to sit silently with them first. And if they want to rant and rave, I'm going to allow that, because it's not about me telling you what I know is best for you. And I don't believe that you should tell people what's best for them. You need to listen first. Always,
Right.
as a practitioner, put yourself in that place where you listen first. I think it's St. Francis of Assisi in his prayer who says, always seek to understand rather than to be understood. And I think if, as a therapist, you make that your mantra, seek to understand first before telling them, well, I got my degree in this, so let me tell you how it is.
Mm-hmm.
When a client comes to you, they don't want you to tell them how it is. They come to you because they already looked you up online and they see your resume and they say, okay, this person like that, they can help me, so I'm going to them. When they sit with you, just be present.
Exactly.
Yes.
Just be present.
Yes.
If
And
you
it's
have nothing to say, just be present.
mm-hmm. And they teach
And
us
I
to believe
go
that the
ahead.
other person knows already has the answers.
Of course they do.
Yes.
And
They're
and that's where as a spiritual practitioner, I help you to go within and find that higher self that is already there. I teach you how to communicate with that higher self. My job is not to have an entourage of clients walking behind me saying,
mm-hmm.
can you help me with this issue? My job as a licensed spiritual practitioner is to teach my clients how to help themselves, how not to become reliant on me for their spiritual well-being and their mental well-being.
That was
Yeah.
beautiful.
That was beautiful. I'm just soaking everything she says in. Yes.
Exactly.
Just soaking it in. Mekaya, did you want to answer, or you want to move on to the next question?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something.
Okay, no problem.
Earlier, Sonia mentioned how important community was, and
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Mekaya, you still there?
I think she is frozen.
Okay. Oh, we
Give me 2
apologize for the
seconds.
technical difficulties. Let's see if we can bring her back once she is back connected. In the meantime, we're gonna move on to the next question. What role do we as practitioners play in our clients having access to these holistic resources?
As a practitioner, I think it is very important to share information. As I said earlier, my job is to help you find wholeness. Not to carry on my back forever and ever. So, as a practitioner, I would want to give you resources either on my pamphlet, or if you come into me, just write them off on something, give you, but to point you in the direction. These are the websites you can go to. Or let's say, for argument's sake, I am not a clinical psychologist, but I know someone who is, and I realize that that's what you need, then I point you in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
It comes down to being willing to share and being willing to do what is in the client's best interest over what is in my best interest financially. Because there are some therapists who will hold you in bondage, even though they know that it is not the right fit for one,
Mm-hmm.
and that they cannot give you the kind of healing that you're seeking, because that's not their area of expertise, that's not their area of training. And as a therapist, you should never be afraid. You should never be afraid to point a client in a direction that helps that client to find wholeness and healing.
Yes. And welcome back, Mekaya.
thank you. I'm so sorry. The
It's
Wi-Fi.
okay.
Thank you. Okay, I'm so sorry.
No
I just
worries.
wanted to say my last point before my Wi-Fi went out. If there was still time for that.
Yes. Go ahead.
All right, perfect. Thank
We have
you.
nothing but time.
Thank you. All right. So I was discussing the topic of community. Three of the closest women in my life actually do suffer from anxiety, and of course, although anxiety does go to the lengths of needing diagnosis, I do feel as though everyone goes through specific levels of anxiety throughout their life, like in different stressful situations, like Sonia was mentioning. Her daughter, how she's really anxious about her grades, but like you coming from the place of her mother, you're like it's okay, but then from the place of a practitioner and spiritualist, you're like, well, I want to help her hone in on these aspects that are more so she feels like she can't tackle. And with that being said, I also do this with my community. I
Mhm.
feel like I feel like me dealing with my different levels of anxiety and then sharing how I deal with these different stressful events. Because I am a college student, I'm not going to say I'm out here on the front lines of COVID-19 and stuff like that, but I am still working hard towards my degree. And anyone in college, I really feel as though they are owed their snaps and all the applause, because
Mhm.
I feel like in order to have the certain grit and to be able to commit yourself to get a degree in general is just amazing. But circling back to my point about community, it's just really good that I'm able to spread um, how I deal with my stress and my anxiety with these three closest women, and then kind of like test and see what, not necessarily what works and what doesn't, but I do know that they handle stress different than I do.
Yeah.
So something that might work for me, and then I go and say, this can work for you. They're either going to take it or they're not going to do it, and I can't
Right.
force someone to do that.
Right.
And with that being said, my only hope is that what I am sharing here at Black Mental Health Matters and on the Sunshine Affair, my platform, I am doing that with not only the 3 closest women in my life, but with anyone else silently suffering from diagnosed or undiagnosed anxiety.
Yes. And we appreciate you here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely, definitely.
Yes, we do. We appreciate your
And
insight.
Thank you.
yeah, and I'm glad that you brought it from your perspective too as a student. Studying is stressful. I know for me, as a student, there were times when I wanted to give up. It is hard work. The expectations are high. But as an adult student, I knew also that my priority was to pass. Because the truth is, after all of that studying to get the grades, when you really analyze it, it is only after you get into the practice that you actually really know and understand
Right.
the subject matter that you've studied.
Hands-on experience. Yes.
Yes, you don't know. You just cramming for exams and hoping to remember. So at the end of it, for me as a mature student, I almost called it quits on more than one occasion. This is hard work. This is hard.
Yes.
And I know when I was doing my theological degree and had 2 young daughters, that was stress. That was stress, you know. And on outside of that, I was still doing a part-time job and having to go in when they call you in. So yes, I understand, but I personally, as a parent, and my child having emotional meltdowns or anxiety, I'm referring. I'm not dealing with that because I know that my judgment is going to be clouded. I'm not going to make the best possible decisions. I may say the wrong thing and cause more problems. So, as a parent, and my children are having anxiety and stress, I do referrals. And I'm going to tell you this, I've seen the results of such referrals.
That's good. That's beautiful.
Yes,
Yes.
I don't know it all. I wish I did, but I don't know it all. But I have colleagues in the field who, if my children are not operating at their best and they have issues, and I notice that something is happening, and I call in someone and say, okay, But first thing I do is seek permission. I ask first, would you like someone to talk to? And from the minute I hear yes, I'm on it. I'm not wasting time in that department. I'm on it.
Because I feel like getting to that step is such a big leap for anyone suffering mentally or emotionally, even physically, from side effects, from not side effects, but like just effects in general from trauma and life experiences and stressful events. Like coping with that internally takes a toll on you. And if someone's offering to help, it can kind of be like, oh, I don't need it. But then it takes a certain type of strong-minded and strong-willed person who's dedicated to their well-being to actually open up and say, hey, I need help.
Yes. And in addition to that, even just having someone giving you the option, like Sonia said, giving your children the option, do you want to, yes or no? That can make them feel even more safe in opening up and talking about that. Like, I know I'm not being forced to do something that I don't want to do. I'm giving the grace and the space to make that decision for myself.
Exactly.
Well, I wasn't always this kind of parent. I wanted to be like my mother. I tell you to do this, you do it, no questions asked. But as I've evolved and become more enlightened about life, I've come to the realization that I don't own other people.
Yes. No worries. But I definitely agree with just people needing that space to make the decision to go and just having the strength to ask for help. It plays a big role in that. And Mekaya, did you want to answer this question? What role do we as practitioners play in our clients having access to these resources? I know that you came in after we introduced the question.
Thank you for circling back for me. I
Yeah, no
appreciate it.
problem.
I feel as though once I do get into the role where I feel comfortable enough to actually provide services for people, because I feel like I'm still very much in my in my novice period,
Okay, yes.
only because I am still trying to find a balance with work life and being a student, and I'm also still trying to find a career that I actually want to dive into completely. I just have multiple interests, so
Mhm.
all of this is just weighing heavily on me. So I guess from my perspective, I feel as though if you want to sit here and say that you are 100% healed, even as a practitioner or as someone who goes to therapy or went through therapy, I
Mhm.
feel like no one is fully healed. And like, I feel like that's just like the universal thought. Like, we're never as healed as we think we could be, because there's always going to be a moment of reflection a month later where we're like, damn, I wish I was here. Or we're flipping the switch and we're like, damn, I'm grateful for the fact that I am here. So,
Right.
and I know Sonia mentioned earlier today about affirmative prayer, and I being in this new age social media, I've just been referring to it as affirmations, but the simple fact that Sonia is rooted in spiritualism and does these acts every day with her career makes me know that what I'm doing is obviously something that I will be able to give back to someone on a larger scale, just like she is doing. And that inspires me to continue and be a practitioner alongside my whatever career I decide to do.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome.
Awesome. Yes. I like how you said, in being a practitioner, we're never fully healed, just in people in general, because I think with that, once we think we're healed, we find something else that needs healing. Like with
Exactly.
always searching and doing introspection, we're always finding things. It's always something. It's always going to be something, because as long as we live, we're going through experiences. And so I feel like having the mindset that once we do this, we're healed puts a cap on our growth in a way,
Exactly.
not being open to more healing. So that's just an important piece for people to understand watching this. If you're struggling with feeling that, oh, I'm not healed enough, well, we're never going to be healed enough.
Exactly. You're never gonna feel like you're healed enough. You're never gonna feel like you look healed enough. You're never going to feel like you think like a healed person. Like, it's just
Right.
so much around this word healing that I feel like people almost let the true meaning of it go over their head,
Yeah.
because it's like, yes, you can tell yourself these things that you are these things, but what it's really rooted in is whether you believe it or not, and whether you have faith in your well-being.
Right.
I just want to say that in listening to you, Makai, and hearing you, I think that regardless of how healed a person think they are, there's so many different aspects of being human that you're always going to have an adventure with dragons to slay.
Yes.
And it is important to be able to identify those dragons as they come up and say, you know what? Dragon incest, I heal from that, or heal from that in this period.
Mm-hmm.
But then as you go through life, you may come across another situation where you're being abused in a different way. It could be financially, it could be emotionally. And all of these are little dragons that you have to overcome. Life is not static.
Right.
Things are always going to come up. But it is being able to pull back from it and look it squarely in the face, deal with it. The more you run from a challenge in life, the more you run into it. And any of us who have been out there dating around, you dump one personality thinking, this person isn't right.
Mhm.
And you run back into the same person
Yes.
time and time again, repeating the same patterns.
Mhm.
That's why it is important to change your perspective.
Yes.
When you can change your perspective. And I heard what you said, Mekaya, about using the word healing in a very superfluous way, like, oh yeah, I'm healing from this. But to be completely healed means that you no longer have the human form,
Mm-hmm.
that you found that complete wholeness and you've merged back with the one source from which all things have come. We're here for an adventure and we should have fun having that adventure. But somewhere along the line,
Yes.
someone told us that we're supposed to become miserable when challenges come, rather than say, oh, this is just another adventure. This is just another thing to strengthen me spiritually,
Mm-hmm.
strengthen me physically. This is just something that has come to help me to overcome my limitations in the human form. And I'm going to go back to a biblical saying where Jesus said, in all things, give thanks, in all things, be happy. You know, be joyful even when things appear not to be good. And this comes down to being totally holistic in your outcome. Because now the mind is in a happy place and the body is going to rejoice because the mind is happy. And the soul is going to love you for it because it's going to say, you know what? I'm on an adventure. I am learning how to overcome all these things and express my wholeness. And that's why it's also important not to live in the past.
Mhm.
The past weighs us down from really living in the present. And when you think about it, we've been schooled to think in terms of the past as being the reality and the future as being the reality, to the point where we do not enjoy the moment. And I'm speaking from experience.
Mm-hmm.
I've spent a lot of years living up to society's standards of what it means to be human.
Mhm.
And it started with going to Sunday school and then going to school. Everyone is putting ideas into your head as how you ought to be. So that by the time you become an adult, you're not living for yourself, but you're living for others. I have to be the best version of who my mother expects me to be. She wants
Mhm.
me to have a husband and a couple of kids because she wants grandkids.
Mhm.
If you really reflect on your personal journey where you want to be, it may not even line up with what your mother wants for you. It
Yeah.
may not line up with what your teachers and the priests and everyone has been telling you. Oh, I want you to be this person. And that's why I like to go with Dr. Michael Beckwith, who talks about visioning, who
Mhm.
talks about connecting to your higher self and asking spirit, what is your highest vision for my life?
Mhm.
And this question translates into other areas. What is spirit's highest vision for my career? And when you do that, you hear, just as Moses and Abraham and all these characters from the Bible had that direct communication with God, we too can have that direct communication. But it means shutting your ears to the external voices of your parents, your friends, and all the other gurus who want to direct your show for you.
Yes. Yes.
And going within and listening. Um, if we're made in the likeness and image of God, and if we really believe that God indwells us, then that's who we go to when we want answers for life. That's who we go to when we want to have holistic wellness.
Mhm.
If you ask the question, what is Spirit's highest vision of my mental well-being? And wait for the answer, it always comes. And this is a practice that I do. This is a practice that I do. I would like to say daily, but it is not daily. But when challenges come, when things get to that point where all of my advisors not making sense to me, and I
Mhm.
don't want to hear the advisors, I say, you know what? Let me check in. Let me do a check in with where it really matters. Let me
Mhm.
go inside
Inside, yes.
Inner sanctuary and call forth the being that indwells me and ask the questions. Because
Yes.
my girlfriend's not making sense right now. What they say not resonating with me. I really don't want to hear them on that topic. And that's another practice that I would recommend vigilance.
Yes. Well, that was beautifully said, and that can segue us into our next question. What are some specific holistic practices that our viewers can incorporate into their daily life to combat stress and anxiety?
Earlier Sonia was talking about soca, and I mentioned dancing. Dancing is really, really, really therapeutic for me because I love music. Music was solely behind the reason I took the broadcast journalism track for my communications degree, because I felt as though if I was able to communicate what I was, not necessarily what I was feeling, or, well, I guess in a sense, yeah, it was to communicate what I was feeling, to connect with those feeling the same thing. I would like to broadcast music with that as well. There's multiple apps nowadays where you can just go ahead and put some music, and then you can start talking, and then you can have like a podcast, and then that's literally what you do. And some people are really, really successful at that, and that's because our connection with music and rhythm and dancing in the Black community, and even throughout like the whole entire world, like music isn't just a community-based thing. It only becomes a community-based thing when the music is, I don't want to say provincial, but when it is secular to that specific like region. So like soca in specific, like you're not going to hear a lot of soca music being played on the radio in the US unless you find a soca station or stuff like that. But even still, I also love the fact that music is so readily available for us to interact with. Like nowadays, you can listen to music on anything. You have the radio, you can listen to music on your smartphone, you can listen to music on your DVD, on a record player. And it's just like having this readily accessible thing that's more so you don't have to worry about if you'll have access to it or if this resource is going to run out. And knowing that this will always be there for you to come to, I feel as though this is extremely beneficial for anyone going through any type of unrest, whether it's mental or whether it's you feel like you're in physical detriment to anything, like, or to your surroundings.
Yes. I think music and sound is very connected to us in Black communities with healing and just resonating within our bodies to bring about healing, and dancing as well. It makes you want to move. Yes.
And I'm sorry, I just wanted to add on earlier. Sonia referred to the Bible, like even like church. Like you go to church, it's music every couple of minutes, and this is just because of the music's effect that it has on the masses. Like you're not going to more so like trends are born from music, ideas are born from music, inventions, a bunch of other things have been direct links to music and the evolution of music throughout history. So that's why also when it comes to people like musicians and artists and entertainers who feel as though they are not in the position to be a role model or in the position to share positivity in their music, because don't get me wrong, I do love a good twerk song. I love good rap music. I love all of that. But at the end of the day, if you're not listening to music that either pertains to how you feel spiritually, mentally, or physically, then you're not really getting the full benefits from music as it is as an entity in itself, because I'm just really passionate about music.
No, I understand that. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Sonia, we're going to say something?
I'm going to put a little bit of icing on the cake for the music.
Mm-hmm.
It is one of the, and not music as in music as we know it, but song.
Mm-hmm.
Sound, yes.
It's one of the oldest healing formulas known to
Mm-hmm.
man. And it's all because it's about vibration.
Mm-hmm.
Each note carries a vibration. The
Mm-hmm.
planet itself hums a song, and that's the song of Om. And if you pass near trees, they too have a song, the birds. Sound is a part of our makeup, but it carries a vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And those vibration changes our energy fields, so
Yes.
to speak. If music is crazy, you know because it offsets you.
Yes.
When it is soothing, it brings you to a place of calm. So yes, music is very important.
Yes.
But I also want to say that in terms of practices,
Mm-hmm.
if you're going with movement, of course you're going to have things like dancing, you're going to have rocking, you're going to have exercise. And
Mm-hmm.
exercise is also very important in terms of healing. And when it comes to song, there's chanting, there's drums, there's flute. For me, I love steel pan music, but mostly wind instruments are great for healing, flutes and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. Um, Harmonicas, things that just soothe the soul.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there's also silence.
Silence is big.
Silence. Being able to close the mind off and allow it some peace is important.
When you say
And there is
silence, do you mean soundscapes? I apologize. I'm sorry.
silence as in absolute nothing. Just close your eyes
Mm-hmm.
and turn them up to the third eye, which is somewhere in the middle here. You allow your focus to go here
Mm-hmm.
and focus on the breath as you inhale and just be mindful not to let thoughts in. When they do come, don't hold on to them, just let them go.
Mm-hmm.
But finding silence is important.
Yes.
Being silent, let the mind rest. It needs to rest sometimes. We
Mm-hmm.
get into this place of overthinking and over talking, and the mind needs a rest.
Yes. I agree.
It needs a time out, otherwise it behaves very naughty.
Mm-hmm.
And
And you get
this is what
overstimulated.
over, yeah.
Yes.
And that's why people have mental breakdowns because
Mm-hmm.
the mind is all over the place, and you can't get the thoughts to be in alignment with your higher self. And you know something is going wrong, and you're unable to bring it back to balance because you
Mm-hmm.
have all these thoughts just going off. And it's like an electrical effect. If you don't harness electricity in the right way
Mm-hmm.
and use it correctly, it can be detrimental to you overall. And that's what our mind does when we allow it to wreak havoc, and then we cannot come back from that place. And even with the best therapists and psychology and psychologists, sorry, and psychiatrists and chaplains,
Mm-hmm.
when the mind is gone and it has gone to another place, cannot bring it back.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, well, I should say cannot bring it back. It's not going to be easy to bring
Not
it
gonna
back.
be easy. Right. And I think even with what you said about silence also correlates with what you said earlier about hearing your inner voice and hearing the inner guidance that you have. You cannot hear that if you are not silent at times. Like if you always
That's
have noise coming in, you can't it or I'm not gonna say you can't, but it can be harder to differentiate
it's
between
harder to, yeah, it's very
silence
hard.
and voice.
It's
Yeah.
hard to, and I think overall, one of the best ways to combat stress and anxiety is to spend time with yourself.
Mhm.
Find alone time. We always think that we have to have a whole set of people with
Mhm.
us when the truth is being alone is fine.
Mhm.
I'm not telling you to isolate forever. I'm just saying, come away from everyone and be with yourself and take yourself out on a date, buy yourself a nice bottle of wine and get a little tipsy, not drunk, a little tipsy.
Tipsy, exactly.
A little tipsy, not drunk, and just be with yourself. Find that place where you can be with you and learn about you, because very often we engage in conversations with other people and we tell them about us. They tell us about them. But we very seldom will you find an individual who says, you know what? Thursday night, I'm taking me on a date. I'm going to go to a nice restaurant, order a nice meal, and have a conversation with myself just because. And talking to yourself does not mean you're mad.
Right.
It doesn't mean you're crazy at all. It just means you're getting in touch with your inner self.
Yes.
And that inner self may show up as a child, it may show up as a parent, it may show up as a lover, however it shows up for you. Just take yourself out and enjoy your own company. Find peace in being with you.
And then even with that, you get to learn what the anxious voice sounds like, and it helps you relate to it better. Or learn what
because you need to understand who you are at your core level. And we don't do that. We're not encouraged to get to know ourselves intimately.
Right.
It's always about projecting who you are onto someone else and then taking that person into you.
Yes.
But you can be sacredly selfish and say, you know what?
Yes.
I love me. I'm
like
going out by myself. I don't want anyone with me today.
Yes, I like that. Sacredly selfish.
I love that.
I like that.
Sacred selfishness. Yes. I got that from, Cynthia James. Yeah, she's another lady that I follow who's awesome. I attended one of her Friday evenings, and she does a lot of workshops for women, and she was talking about sacred selfishness, because we as women do a lot for everyone in our circle and leave ourselves until last, and by the time you get around to it, the bed is calling you, and you start the cycle all over again. So being sacredly selfish means take care of you ever so often. Not that you neglect to help others, but put on your gas mask first, oxygen mask first. Always remember, my oxygen mask goes on first, and then I can help anyone else who I choose to help. Yes. And again, you have to be selective in helping people. Not every battle is for you.
Yes. Ooh, say it again.
Exactly. This past full moon, actually, I did a lot of self-reflection because I felt as though it was a genuine time for me to release in order to welcome renewal. So with that being said, I needed to more so sit with myself, and they say that full moon energy can be felt within the first day, the actual day, and the day following. So I started my full moon rituals, nothing in specific. I was just affirming affirmative prayer. I did a lot of journaling. I did a lot of crying, and I did listen to a lot of music. Yes, the release was necessary. Yes. And I feel as though now that I sat with myself during those stages, it wasn't necessarily like something that I can go back to and say that I wish I didn't do, because I always see crying as a necessary need of release. And just the same thing with, like Sonia mentioned, like being sacredly selfish. I love that phrase.
Me too. I'm keeping it with me.
I'm keeping it with me. And I didn't even realize that in doing so, and sitting with myself and sitting with the things that I really wanted to release, and what no longer served me, what I no longer wanted to maintain or put up with in my life, I feel as though that is extremely beneficial for me. And when I do become a practitioner, when I do become a licensed practitioner, after I'm out of school, I will look back to times when I was able to sit with myself, and definitely suggest that to my clients as well.
Yes, I think that can be very helpful. In the full moon and new moon processes, especially since it has so much effects on our emotion.
Exactly.
That can be definitely a good holistic practice to incorporate with our guests as well,
Yes.
clients. So this has been such a great conversation. We have one more question. It's like I don't want it to end. But our last question as we wrap up this beautiful conversation is, what do you think can be some barriers that the Black community experiences when dealing and addressing stress and anxiety?
Well, Mekaya, I
Oh,
couldn't answer that question because
I
it comes down to finances, basically.
Mhm.
Finances. You live in a society where anything to do with mental health, one, carries
Yes,
a stigma.
so
And
expensive.
secondly, persons from an impoverished background don't necessarily want to spend money on mental health.
Mhm.
I personally don't think that government administrative bodies around the world
Mhm.
see mental health. Well, up until recently, COVID really opened up some windows. Did not see mental health as being relevant. And I say that based on how I've seen the mental health hospital here at one stage look so
Mhm.
depressing.
Mhm.
How can you take me to a place to heal for my mental challenges when the environment looks depressing?
Right.
And there are a lot of misunderstandings about mental health to this day. I don't think that you can look at mental health just from a purely clinical perspective. I think you have to look at it from a holistic perspective.
Mhm.
You have to look at everything that has happened to that person, especially from the soul perspective. And if you can speak to the soul of a lot of people and see how the soul continues to carry trauma, I think we will be in a better place. But ideally, what we need are financial institutions that are willing, especially insurance companies, that are willing to say, you know what, this can go on your medical insurance.
Yes.
Because we're no longer looking at medical issues as just being physical, but also mental,
Mhm.
exactly.
also
Yeah.
emotional.
Yes.
And I
So
think a
I
lot of
think that it comes down to money.
Mhm. Yes.
if I may just piggyback back off of what Sonia was mentioning, um,
Mhm.
when it comes to finances, I feel like a lot of times our community, we feel as though it's too early to start planning or they're not in the right capacity to start planning.
Mhm.
I follow Anthony O'Neill and he just opened up a savings account for his unborn child. And like this was for college savings, obviously. And he's not even married either yet. I don't believe. I think he said he doesn't have a wife either. But just taking these necessary steps to provide for future generations um, and planning is going to impact is going to make an impact much bigger than we know, because I feel as though past generations, when it came to mental health, it really weighed them down. But now that these resources are available for I don't want to say the current generation, because I feel as though all of us are now like just getting acclimated to what mental health is and how there are so many different ways to combat it, because a couple of decades ago mental health wasn't even like a industry to be working in.
Right.
um, and with that being said, now that we're in a space and there are so many people willing to help, I feel as though our future generations are going to benefit. Me being at the front lines, of course, as well. And another thing I feel as though may pose as a setback when it comes to the Black community growing in terms of mental health advocacy and um, stuff along that nature would be not necessarily like trusting in themselves. Like they're like, oh, just like solo travel for just to put it out example. Oh, Black women can't solo travel. They don't like us over here. Or I can't go to that country by myself because I don't feel safe.
Right.
But I feel as though if you're going to put these limitations on yourself, then you're not necessarily seeing the entire picture, because um, there's so much more to the world than just the states. And I only use travel as an example because I recently have been tossing and turning between whether I wanted to begin solo travel myself, and this is an experience that I'm currently trying to navigate when it comes to actually taking the steps to towards your mental health and towards your self actualization. It all starts at the bottom tier. It's your basic needs, and then as you go up, you reach your higher self. And
Mhm.
this is more scholastic point of view, but it's kind of similar to what Sonia was mentioning earlier about God, and how your higher power um, ultimately negates, or I want to say ultimately decides. I don't want to say your higher power ultimately decides your well-being when you are actively making efforts towards um, increasing your well-being, but it is important to have faith in that. And some people's practices do involve higher powers. Some people's faith are solely based in higher powers, and knowing that their higher power is there looking out for them, and
Right.
putting their hands on them and letting them know that this is not the end, letting them know that it's not the time to give up, that this is the time to go into overdrive, because obstacles are only put in front of us to see how we work through them. Like, nothing
Mhm.
that you've ever been through is something that you can't come out of.
Yeah.
And that's just a very important item. That's just a very important adage that has sat with me since I heard it. You can't expect things to like change unless you go out and reach for the change.
Right. And I want us to piggyback off of what both of you said about one being prepared to take the steps to addressing your stress and anxiety, and about the financial part. I think a big part of the barrier is just having the access to the resources for people in our community, and having the discussions like we're having now to understand, why it's important and where to find this stuff, and how to go about getting the support and help that you need. I feel like that could be a big barrier in our communities.
Agree. And I also think that one of the biggest barriers is denial. A
Yes.
lot of us are in denial. We don't want to address when things don't feel right. And even with some of our friends and relatives, and we notice that behavior shift, we don't want to call it as it is.
Hmm.
And I think it stems from fear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But denial is a big part of not getting treatment as well.
And I
Knowing
think,
something is wrong, but you do nothing because you're
yeah.
in denial. And a lot of parents, and I've seen this, are in denial when their children are acting out.
Mhm.
And rather than say, well, let me take you to someone and have your mental health checked, they just simply sweep it under the carpet as bad behavior. And
Mm-hmm.
bad behavior can see young black men in prison because something that could have been treated at a younger stage turns out into such anger and frustration
Right.
that they end up on the wrong side of the law by acting out that frustration that could have been controlled. So parents need to become more aware of the behavior changes in their children and call it when they see it and get the necessary help early.
Hmm.
Just to add on to what Sonia just mentioned, I feel as though because you are a spiritual practitioner and a holistic practitioner, I feel like your perspective is very genuine and you do care about your clients. But I feel like more so people's perspectives on not participating in the mental health services that are readily available to them, or therapy in general. I feel like it's, oh, I don't want to be given all these pills. I don't want to talk to a shrink. Someone's going to tell me that I'm crazy. But these are all just misconceptions that once
Stigmas.
you actually go through this process, you'll see that you were wrong. Like, I feel like almost all of my friends who have gone through therapy were at a stage where they're like, that's not going to help. And then not even just my friends, like my loved ones as well, anyone around me who has had benefits, positive benefits from therapy and actually zeroing in on their mental health as a whole and trying to better that for themselves. They all started off as a skeptic, but now that they have been through the process or are now going through their spiritual healing journey or their mental health journey, I feel like they now appreciate the work that they've put in, and they no longer feel like it was unnecessary.
Right. And that's honestly, I feel because of the stigmas that are attached to mental health within our communities, like the denial comes in and the not or thinking it's not going to work comes in, and it's, oh, nothing's wrong with me, or I'm not crazy, so I don't need that. And it's like, just because you go to therapy or you seek assistance doesn't mean you're crazy or doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. I know a lot of people that are in therapy just to get to know themselves better.
Exactly.
So it's so many different components of therapy that just come together and can bring you into a better understanding and a more healed version of yourself. And we just have to work to destigmatize the process of seeking help and going to therapy, because it's really a great experience.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. For sure it is. And I think it's important that people understand their own brand of craziness and don't wish it away, don't sweep it away. There's a little bit of craziness in all of us.
Yes.
I acknowledge my own craziness and I love it.
Yes.
I think it's fun.
Yes.
Exactly.
It allows you to be as authentic as you can be and know that it is okay.
Yes.
And I think once you can admit that to yourself, you can admit to the world, yeah, I have a little bit of craziness going on, and it's fun.
Yes. I definitely agree. Ladies, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your knowledge and your energy with us. I love your energy. You both are so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you
for being
here. Jasmyn, thank you so much. Thanks for having me here.
Yes, of course. Would you guys like to share where our audience can reach you or find you, or more about your business?
Yes. I do have a social media based platform. I'm on Meta as well as Twitter. It is the Sunshine Affair, and and I have a portfolio website. It is Beacons BEACONS.AI/High Sunshine.
Thank you, Mekaya. And Miss Sonia, where can our viewers find you and all the wonderful things that you're doing?
All the wonderful things that I'm doing. I'm a practitioner for CSL Greater Boston. I'm also a practitioner for Visalia, California. I have my Facebook page under Sonia D. Hart, and I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I am on Instagram, and I'm also on Twitter. I'm out there.
Okay. So viewers, make sure you go and follow Sonia and Mekaya on their social media platforms to connect further. And thank you again for joining us today at Black Mental Health Matters.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have an awesome day. Until